They've been just playing some unbelievable basketball. My number 4 pick would be the Spurs, my favorite team. Duncan's playing as good as ever. Ginobili and Parker coming back off injuries. The depth of this team is starting to return. They're starting to get key performances out of their bench guys. And if you look at the standings, the Spurs right now, 9-1 in their last 10. They've won 6 straight, boasting the second best scoring defense in the Western Conference. So they've really proven that they can hang with the best. They can hang in the Western Conference with some of these really good teams, such as Oklahoma City and Houston and LA with much younger talent than them. I would consider LA a potential favorite, but they're a contender at this point. I still don't think with Chris Paul and Blake Griffin that whole team is meshed quite enough. My number 3 pick would be the Pacers, and the reason why is this. Start off the year really strong. They're 29-4 at home. That's a record you always want to be able to win in the playoffs at home. You always want to be you're coming to our house, you're going home loser. That's how you want it to be. They're tops in the East right now. They have a 1-game lead on Miami. But there's 2 things that really worry me. And it's the fact that this team has lost 4 straight games. They're 5-5 in their last 10. And they had some bludgeoning losses. Like, they had some ugly losses. They lost at Dallas 105-94. They got blown out by Charlotte, a team that LeBron James put 61 up himself on. They got destroyed in Houston. They've had some really miserable performances over the last few weeks. They have. And even when they've won, they have not looked that impressive. It's like all of a sudden once they clinched that playoff spot last week, they kind of eased off the gas pedal. And the second thing that bothers me is that road record. They're 17-13 on the road, which is only 4 games over 500. If you look at all the other teams that have a really good shot at winning the title, Portland, Houston, OK City, San Antonio especially, and Miami all have better road records than Indiana. And that's going to be really tough come playoff time, because if you got to go to Miami for 4 out of 7, or if the Western Conference does get the best record in the NBA, and you got to go to San Antonio or Oklahoma City for 4 out of 7 games, that's not going to be easy. That's just going to be incredibly tough because those teams are so good at home. Spurs, Thunder, Rockets, Heat, they're so good at home as well. If you're not as good as if you're not as good on the road as the other teams are, you're at a disadvantage. But if Hibbert and George can turn this team around and play ball the way they were playing the first half of the season with an adequate offense and stifling defense, they got a chance. Absolutely. My number 2 pick is OK City. They're 5-5 and they've lost 2 straight in their last 10 games. They boast the West's best record at home, actually tied with them. They have the most wins at home in the West, tied with the Rockets and the Clips with 26, and trail only Indiana with 29. But this team's looked really vulnerable since Russell Westbrook came back. He came back in the game between Russell Westbrook came back in the game between the Heat and the Thunder. And that kind of started off. I mean, you look at what that team was doing. They had a point where they had won 14 of 16 games. They were just on fire. Actually, my apologies, 15 of 17 games. They were just on fire. Westbrook comes back. He's had some good performances, but at the same time, look at who they've lost to. They lost to Cleveland, they lost at Phoenix, and they lost to LA with their whole team intact. You can't have those kind of dumb losses and expect to go into the NBA playoffs and expect to tear it up. You can't just switch it on and switch it off. They're going to have some trouble if they keep losing to them bogus teams like that. And that leaves number one, in my opinion, the team with the best chance to win the title this year, and that's Miami. The reason why I'm going with the defending champion is because of this. They're so good at home. They've proven that it doesn't really matter if they have to go on the road or not. They'll play well on the road. They've got a better offense in Indiana. They have been able to shut Indiana down historically over the last few seasons. And in the big moments, LeBron, D. Wade, Chris Bosh, the last 2 seasons, they've proven to be the best team in the clutch. They've proven to be the best team in the clutch the last 2-3 years. And if you look at the potential playoff matchups, the bracket would go like this. Miami would host Charlotte, a team they just put up 124 on, in which LeBron James put up 61 of those himself. Undefeated against Charlotte this year. They would win that series pretty easily. Then they'd play either the Toronto Raptors or the Brooklyn Nets, and that's an easy series right there. And Pacers will probably get past Atlanta, but there's no guarantee they'll get past Chicago because Chicago's been playing really well lately. They've won 7 of their last 3. They're 7 of the last 10, and they won their previous game, and they beat the Heat the last time they played. And the Pacers, they played well against them too. So it's not going to be easy. But I'd have to look at the Heat as the best team simply because of the fact they've won it twice in a row. LeBron wants as many titles as he can get his hands on. And honestly, unless you got anything short of a buzzsaw, nothing's going to stand in his way. And now as I switch gears to the National Hockey League, I would like to update some scores from tonight. 2 games still in progress. The Islanders and the Canucks are 3-3 with just over 14 minutes left in the third period. The Toronto Maple Leafs lead Anaheim Ducks 3-1 with just over 18 left in the third period. And the finals from today, in regulation, Pitt beats Washington 3-2, LA beats Calgary 3-2, and in a shootout victory, Phoenix over Tampa Bay 4-3, and 2 overtime victories. Nashville over Ottawa 4-3, and Colorado over Winnipeg 3-2. But now to the standings and who I think's got the best chance. I'm glad knowing my Penguins are now back at the top of the Eastern Conference. That's great because they got to do that. And speaking of which, they're my 5th best team. They're my 5th top contender for the Stanley Cup. And the reason why is this. It's really tough to find a guy who can play in the top line alongside Crosby and Kunitz. Because you saw what that top line did tonight. All 3 goals came from that top line. Kunitz with 2 and Crosby with 1 himself. But the thing about the Penguins is that tonight's game showed they got outshot 33-20. You can't get outshot 33-20 in the playoffs and expect to win because if you're not converting on those 20 shots, if you're only getting 1 goal in and your opponent gets 3 off 33, you'll lose. You can't afford to go into playoffs. You got to be more aggressive. Like if you look at the last 2 years the Penguins have been in the playoffs, and you look at the games that they were really aggressive, aka the 10-3 drubbing of the Philadelphia Flyers in 2012, the one of the 2 games they took from them, dirty ass Flyers. And then you look at the series last year when they played conservative against the Islanders, they lost. When they played, up tempo and tried scoring, they won. Whenever they played the Senators and they played conservative, they lost. The Bruins, they lost. When they played up tempo and tried to score and tried to hit a lot of shots against the Senators, they blew the doors off of them. So this team's got to be attacking. Now my 4th best team is the Anaheim Ducks. I know they're the top team in the Pacific Division and we're the top team in hockey prior to last night, but Jonah Hiller's had a really good year. Ryan Getzlaf and Corey Perry are having phenomenal years as well. They're plus 50 in goal differential and have one of the best offenses in the NHL. But at the same time, they've been really inconsistent. They've had stretches this year they've looked unbeatable, and they've had stretches where they look like they could be beat by anybody. So that's really something they got to watch out for. They got to play more consistent hockey if they want to have any chance at hoisting the Stanley Cup. If you look at the last few times the Anaheim Ducks have been in the playoffs, They lost in the conference quarterfinals to the Red Wings last year, the conference quarterfinals to the Predators in 2010-11, and probably the most debilitating loss was in the conference semis in 2008-2009 to the Red Wings, 3-4. So, yeah, this team's got a lot of work to do. My third favorite team would be the Boston Bruins, the best team in the East, in my opinion, on paper. They've got an offense that can score just as many goals as the Penguins, but they've got a defense that's that much better. Their goal differential is plus 61 and the Penguins is plus 45, and they've scored the same number, meaning that Boston's defense is playing a lot better. They're incredibly good at home. They're 25-9 at home this year, counting regular and overtime losses. On the road, they're really good too, 17-10-3. But again, right now the Eastern Conference is behind the Western Conference, and I don't really think Boston would beat either St. Louis or Chicago in a best of 7 series right now. I think Anaheim would have a chance because Anaheim's defense, it's good, but then again, it's not up to the caliber to really shut down the Bruins. But at the same time, the Bruins don't really have a top-notch offense. Tuukka Rask has to have another really good postseason. My number 2 team is the Blues. Getting Ryan Miller at the trade deadline, very impressive for the team that is the best in hockey in terms of points. They got the most with 94. They're 44-14-6. They got a plus 26 goal differential and a defense. They got a plus 66 goal differential. Looked at the wrong line. They've scored almost as many goals as the Blackhawks, and they've given up almost 30 less. They're playing the most impressive hockey of anybody, really, the last few weeks. They've won 5 straight, and they're 7-2-1. So they've really flicked the switch and have turned it on. But in my opinion, in terms of on paper, they're still second best in their own division, next to the team I think is the favorite to win the Cup again, and that's the Chicago Blackhawks. This team's putting together a dynasty in free agency era, which is something you have rarely ever seen in any of the 4 sports. Because you've got a team that is just absolutely loaded with offense. Patrick Kane, Jonathan Toews, Marian Hossa. This team is loaded. They can score with anybody, and the defense has been an issue, but they'll shore that up. They shored it up at the end of last season, and they'll do it again this year. I think that they're the best team right now in the Western Conference, and I think they're the best team right now in the NHL. Even though the points may not show it, but think about it this way. They played really well against the big name teams this year, and I don't expect that to change. All right, that's my show for tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll probably be doing shows frequently, and whenever we get internet and broadcasting online back up at my school, I'll be sure to broadcast it through I'll be sure to share the link through my broadcast. But until then, stay tuned for more shows to come in the future. None more for tonight. I'm taking a call tonight after this. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Take care.